Hello, biology teachers. How you guys doing this year? This is video one in a series of 5 videos that will walk you through the new curriculum map and resources I put together to help you guys plan out your lessons, to have engaging, dynamic activities for your students. And so we're going to go through each part just so that you guys can see the way that I've structured it. And then at the end, I'll put it all together. How do I pull all this together to create an engaging, dynamic lesson? Hopefully, this will be useful for you guys. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll just share my screen and we'll get started with the first document, which is the scope and sequence. So scope and sequence is not your daily, weekly lesson design tool, but it does help you kind of get an idea of the whole year kind of at a glance. What topics are coming up and what are the questions students will be answering. I'll also have links to your unit assessment once I get those converted to PDF. And so it's a really good area to kind of wrap your brain around the big picture. Now, when I had this designed, the idea was a one-pager, so I squeezed it all into one page. But while on computer, you can zoom in and see the font just fine. When you print it out, it is tiny, tiny, tiny. And so I made this other version. So if you see this image up here, just double click and you'll see that it drops down a different version that, sorry, I should have done double click. Man, I am messing up today. And click the link, and that'll take you to the large print version. That might be a little bit easier to read. So this is the same magnification, 100%. See how much easier it is to read. You can even go in a 125 if you need to. But when I print this out, it looks much better than the other one. So if you're someone who likes to have these printed out, so it's an easy look in a folder, you might find this large print version a little useful. I certainly have. And all it is now it's a front and back as opposed to just one page, one side. So still pretty useful. Before I start going down through the structure of it, I do want to point out for biology, your unit 4 carried over from quarter 2 onto quarter 3. So you'll see this unit listed here is the exact same unit listed here. And so that's just, you'll do a few more weeks here in quarter 3 as you finish up that unit. And that's totally fine. Okay. And that kind of brings up a different discussion about how this year, instead of the interim test, we have quarter test. They might call them unit tests, but it's at the end of quarters. And so right here, at the end of quarter 1, you'll do the district test. And that'll be over unit 1 and unit 2 for chemistry. Now, when I designed those, I didn't want there to be a lot of questions at the end of this unit 2 that possibly teachers didn't have the time to get to, and now we're assessing students on it. And so in order to make sure that these were fair and useful, I really weighted the questions more towards unit 1 and the start of unit 2. And I didn't ask a lot of questions from the end of these units, just in case you're running out of time, then you don't have to focus so much on covering a ton of content, cramming it all in. So hopefully you guys find that useful to making sure that we're assessing the core middle part of this. And that might be useful for students to have more success on the test. You guys let me know what you think. All right, so moving down from top to bottom, you've got your pacing. Now the pacing, this is a very loose, structured pacing. It's not strict. I'm not saying you must stick with this or else. It's just kind of based off the material that was listed out there in Discovery Ed and how it all kind of comes together. This was roughly what we should be spending some time on to make sure that, you know, between unit 1, unit 2, we've covered enough of it and to be successful on the quarter test. So don't feel like you have to be exactly where these things say. And when we get to this pacing guide, I have weeks laid out there too. Again, very loose because you might be pulling in more information from an outside resource and diving deep into a topic. And then you might not dive into some topics as much. So just kind of, if you're 2 weeks behind, okay, maybe I just need to pick up the pace, or I'm going to skip over something. And if you're way ahead, well, maybe I can dive deep into this topic because it's really covered on the test. So keep that in mind in terms of pacing. I'm not holding anybody strict to these. Moving down, these link right to the curriculum maps, and we'll do that in the next video. But for now, just know, okay, I can get to all my curriculum maps from here, which is really nice. And those are new as well. We'll break those down in the next video. Your central questions. So by the end of the unit, Students should be able to answer these using very scientific language, claims, evidence, reasonings, those sorts of things. It's a good marker for if you have students answer the question at the start and at the end, they can really see the growth as you've gone and progressed throughout the unit. It's also good to keep yourself anchored in what are we trying to answer. So you might find that useful. Proficiency scales, if you guys have been in the district for a while, you've maybe even helped create the proficiency scales or used them. This wasn't my project. This was before my time. I'll open one up, but I haven't modified these or changed the ordering or anything like that. But it's a good way to kind of break the standard down into what should students be working on. This is where we get the students where they should be. And then like, if I want to push them even further. So I know some teachers find these useful, like using those. It's a good spot to get your student I can statements. So that might be a good resource. It's not my thing, so I have left those pretty much alone, kept them in the scope and sequence for you guys. So feel free to use as you find effective. Standards. These are the standards aligned with each unit. What's nice about these, if you click these open, I think it was designed like this previously as well. Instead of taking you to the full document with all the standards, this will take you just to this specific standard breakdown that DESE has. So you don't have to scroll through a long document to go find your standard. This is this one standard broken down for you. So hopefully you find those useful. If you're someone who likes to look at the standards, break it apart, how do I teach this better, and all that. I also have unit projects. We'll talk more about unit projects when we get to the curriculum landing page. But basically every unit I thought of, okay, what's a good one project that can encapsulate the whole learning of the unit as a way that's not a quiz or a test or some writing, something a little bit different that students can still demonstrate I've learned the content. And so these are things that I went and I found. I'm not saying that these are the best or that you have to use these things, but they do give you some ideas for what we could be doing as an end of unit project. Feel free to use these, modify these, find something different. If you have feedback on these or some better ideas that we could share with other teachers, we're going to be sharing a lot this year as we kind of collaborate to make these things better. So definitely let me know what you guys think in terms of the unit projects. And then finally, you got your unit assessments. Now, I've created the quarter assessments. And so for right now, there won't be anything for like the end of unit 1. Maybe we can all collaborate and create something for that. So that way there's like a mid exam that you could give your students that's not tied to any district data collection, but that you guys might find useful for recapping each unit. But that would be something we could create together. You guys let me know, and then we'll set something up. But I'll at least have my the quarter test linked here, so that way you guys can see the questions ahead of time. One, let me know if any changes need to be made, but 2, so that way you see, okay, this is the language that's being used. These are the high concept questions, topics that are being asked a lot about, and diagramming. You can use these things in your do nows or exit tickets. I've been saying for all my other videos with the other grades, we don't want to teach to a test, right? But we do want to teach towards a test. And so if you're teaching, this was like how interims were last year. If you're teaching throughout the entire unit and you don't know what's coming up on the test, and all of a sudden there's a test and it has nothing to do with what you were focused on, that's a bit unfair to the students. So we want to teach towards the test. So look at those prior to your teaching, so that way you tailor your message and your focus to what the students will be assessed on. So that's pretty much what that looks like. It just kind of repeats as you go from quarter 1 to quarter 2. Again, unit 4 is carried on from quarter 2 onto the next semester. So keep that in mind. That's just a copy paste over here. And then you finish off with units 5, unit 6. That didn't change from last year. So the pacing, the scope and sequence, the units covered, that was all the same. I've just repackaged things in a way that we can bring out some more of Discovery Ed, which you guys will see in the future videos when I walk through the curriculum map. So let's end it there. I tend to ramble if I don't stop myself. So I hope this first video was useful for you, seeing the scope and sequence, how that can be used to kind of plan out your year. A few useful links in there. And let's end it there. And I'll see you guys in the next video.